This is a take. An interesting take? No, just a take. Story time from Disney. Now, if you follow me on a regular basis, you know that I used to be a cast member. That's me. The Muppets. They used to have original ideas. I'm not gonna act like jokes haven't changed over the years. They have, and that's probably a good thing. But when it comes to the Muppets, we want original ideas. Except, almost all the Muppets' ideas are not original. But Jim Henson was a genius. Yep, genius enough to know to use old vaudeville acts. I love the Muppets. I spent 4 years of college wearing a hat that said Sesame Street right across the top, because I was obsessed with the artistic integrity that Jim Henson brought to the Muppets. Now let me also say, Jim Henson had a lot of cool ideas. Dark Crystal, Fraggle Rock, even characters they built for Star Wars. Super original, super cool. But the Muppets, well, I'm just gonna break this down for you. All the songs that you saw on The Muppet Show back in the day were songs that were so old that they had become public domain and people had forgotten of their existence. Yes, they played some new songs, especially when they had special guests, but the Muppets themselves and their entire show is based around old vaudeville acts. And Jim Henson loved a running gag. He believed the joke would be funny, and then not funny, and then circle back and be funny again. And honestly, as an actor, I've based my entire career around that system. Love a running gag. Now, I'm not saying the Muppets don't do things that are original, but like one of their whole things is parodying other people's movies and stories. Here is the system of a Muppet movie. Every Muppet's doing their own thing. They get together. They do an activity together. They somewhat fail. Sing Rainbow Connection. And then, rinse, wash, and repeat. Literally, the Muppet Show was every night, everything falling apart during the show, and then having to fix it, and then get ready for the next show. And you know what? If you want to take all of what I've just said and throw it in the bin, that's fine, but I want one thing to be talked about. After you told me all of this in the comment, you then said they should build Muppet 3D over in the courtyard, and I'm confused how that's an original idea. And I think we all need to stop and remember that when we talk about how we want Muppet 3D to open back up. Jim Henson stopped doing the Muppet Show because he was ready to move on to other things. He hated the idea of the Muppets getting stale. He ended the show and then continued on to make things like Dark Crystal. So then when I get in a conversation with other Muppet fans, the first things they want to tell me is how they want the Muppets to be exactly the same as they were in the 70s, followed by nothing should ever be changed. And honestly, as an artist myself, I feel Jim would be ashamed of that. And I've said this before, when people talked about how the Muppet Theater was going to go away at Hollywood Studios, I said Jim Henson would be super upset if he knew we were just running the same show over and over again. That nothing would ever change and the Muppets were stuck in this glass case to be viewed as vintage. Never to be touched, only to keep doing the same act over and over again. And I think that's a shame. Well, they fired Whitmire, and he was the last one to care about the Muppets. No, Brian Henson is the last one to care about the Muppets, and he was okay with firing Whitmire. And I don't know why we gloss over that point. Jim Henson's own blood, who Jim Henson trained to be a puppeteer, and who was the lead creator on Muppet Christmas Carol, the one you all love, agreed with the firing of Whitmire. But sorry, I'm getting away from my point. My point is, if we keep trying to say that the Muppets are something else other than what they actually are, which is puppets that are vaudeville actors, then they're never going to be good again. Because all you're doing is putting them in a glass box and putting them on display and saying, this is the Muppets. Do I agree with every choice that Disney has made with the Muppets in the last few years? No, of course not. But we should all be understanding that the Muppets should always be changing and growing, just as Jim Henson wanted it to be. But we're all very selfish, and we just want things to stay the same. And that toxic idea of them being new, but also staying exactly the same, is why the Muppets aren't getting used at all. You want to know what I think is the peak of all Muppets in the last few years? Speakers singing Nirvana. Let's do our best to not stick the Muppets in the glass case in the museum already. They are not an ancient relic, they are an ever-growing, ever-changing character. And yes, Jim Henson was a genius, but part of his genius was seeing that the Muppets would forever change. I don't know if you like that, but my uncle who owns the theater likes it. Just saying. Bitch!